again. Welcome to our audience. We'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance and ask Councilmember Shelton to lead us in that pledge, please. All right, thank you, Councilman Shelton. This part of the meeting is for citizen comments. If you would like to speak to the council, we have speaker comment cards at the back. We appreciate filling those out so we can call you up and maintain a little bit of order. But again, we'll allow everyone to speak who would like to. So let's begin public comments or citizen comments by inviting Dave Richardson. Come on up, Dave. And bring your pickleball paddle if you, no, don't.
Okay, is that okay? Can you all hear okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for the opportunity to do this. And I just wanted to encourage the council to pass the revised resolution. I want to congratulate you on passing the resolution initially in January. And I think the timing is really good now. I've been involved in doing outreach in the area of energy and air quality for about 15 years. And I remember when I first started doing it that I couldn't even get in to talk to legislators, or I couldn't get in and talk to the governor. And at that time, there were a lot of naysayers. And I've seen tremendous changes that have occurred since that time. And I think the reason the timing's so good now, though, is because Rocky Mountain Power, the power companies are starting to come around, and enough of the communities are that I think it's a critical point, a point that now there will be enough support from the communities if you pass the revised resolution, and enough interest on the part of the power companies that we can really make this happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. John Kennington. John, there you are.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I live on Pippin Drive in Apple Valley, and appreciate the opportunity to comment here. I would first like to thank the mayor, city council, and staff, and motivated citizens, many of whom are here tonight, for collaborating to enact several actions toward addressing the issues of sustainability, air quality, energy efficiency, climate, and quality of life around our community. Such actions include the building and planning of trails, the passing of an anti-idling ordinance, bringing glass recycling to the city, obtaining a $13 million grant to start a transportation hub in the gravel pit, the hosting of numerous open houses to discuss transportation and other issues on Wasatch Boulevard and in the canyons above, like what's happening out there right now, okay? Participating in the recent mayor's town hall discussing sustainability and climate issues, the hiring of a sustainability coordinator and planner for Cottonwood Heights and some surrounding towns, and the centerpiece of all of this, of course, being the sustainability and energy efficiency resolution that was passed on January 8th. I would therefore please encourage the council to continue this momentum and offer a positive vote tonight to make the sustainability resolution compliant with HB 411. To move ahead with these important and timely issues, I understand that it would be most advantageous to join the HB 411 group in our dealings with Rocky Mountain Power. Unfortunately, in this political climate, it has fallen upon the local governments to take the lead in implementing these actions, as we can still discuss these issues in a civil manner. To force our state and federal governments to follow towards implementing similar actions to address these issues. And Cottonwood Heights is certainly one of those local leaders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Ken Garner. Ken, come on up. Good to see you again.
John was very eloquent. I agree with everything he said. Mayor, thank you for the opportunity. Council, we have one of the best city councils I've ever seen. Tim Tingy, thanks for joining our city. You guys have been great. This sign, Clean Heights, I brought back in January. I've been hanging this. It's a little faded and wrinkled. It's been in my window ever since. This means a lot to me. It means a lot to my kids. The thing is, even today, I heard that 75 people die in the Salt Lake Valley every year because of ozone pollution. That doesn't even count particulate pollution. This is a health issue. It is also a global issue. It's an environmental issue. So I strongly recommend you continue down this path, not only re-voting for this new resolution, but also following through once the franchise agreements come. Secondly, I wanted to thank you, Mayor, for getting me involved with the lighting resolution. I did meet with the city. I gave some comments. I am a professional electrical engineer and a lighting designer. And we have a much better resolution today, ordinance, I guess, than we started with. And it's reasonable. It's reasonable for not only commercial builders, but also for residences that are concerned about light trespass into their back windows. And I think that even the very fact that east of Wasatch Boulevard, there's a little bit lower illumination standard there, and there's some nighttime shutdown, I highly recommend that you vote for this ordinance as well. Yes, there's a little bit of paperwork that has to be done when the buildings are being permitted, but I think that it makes sense, and it's actually probably better than many of the surrounding cities that have this ordinance. So thank you very much for involving me, and if you have any questions further, I'm very glad to help at anything. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you for your voluntary efforts. I understand that was from the staff, that your comments and suggestions played an important role in the final document, so thank you. Lynn Krause. Lynn?
Good evening, Mayor, Council staff. Please don't throw rotten tomatoes at me, but I have to bring up the website. So I've been trying to use the new website for multiple weeks now, and 5 minutes before I came over here, I just clicked around, and these are the errors that came up. So not sure what's happening, but we're getting HTTPS errors, like our security certificate isn't up to date. We're getting link errors. We're getting random errors. We're not getting, our latest Mixler meeting is from 2016, so I'm totally like 3 weeks behind. Can't listen to Planning Commission, can't listen to City Council meetings, can't listen to anything. There's an events button over the right, and there's an events button down here. They don't go to the same place. This one down here is the calendar, and this calendar needs to be up here where it's highly visible. Couldn't find the Meet the Candidates night on there last week. Let's see, broken links, events. We need a Mixler Live or Listen Live link or some such thing so that people know easily where to go to listen to meetings. I think we need to have, let's see, I wrote a quick note. We need a global error page so that when any of those bad errors happen, it automatically takes you to that global error page, and it needs to say that it's under construction. So, because I'm hearing that it's sort of under construction, but there's nothing on the website that indicates it's under construction. And then when it goes to that global error page, it needs to email whoever's in charge of the website so they can go fix the link, fix the data, that type thing. So, sorry, maybe I'm the only one in the city that uses the website, but I can't find anything right now. Thanks.
Lynn, very valid critique, and we appreciate those comments. I don't know, Tim, you want to respond?
Yeah, I just want to comment. I appreciate them as well, and we recognize there's some areas that we've been working on and we will continue to work on. We are also going to bring in some residents to do a test on it as well. We're still trying to work through these errors, and once we get through that with our provider as well, then we're going to do that. So, but I appreciate the input.
Yep. William Cosgrove. Welcome back.
Welcome. Thank you for having me back. Mayor and City Council, I'm a mostly retired pediatrician, and I want to speak to the children of our city in terms of both air pollution and global warming. We've got about 30,000 children here in our city, and you've already made an important step to plan for that and to make the important political step of saying we're going to do something about pollution and global warming. And this change is only 2 years, but it gives you the urgency because kids can't wait. Again, they breathe deeper, they breathe faster than us. They are more at risk of both the immediate problems with pollution and the global warming part is the world we're living to them. So I thank you for the work you've done, and I want this next step. And you're not alone. Last Thursday, Holiday joined you. Next Tuesday, the Salt Lake County Council is going to consider the same resolution for the unincorporated areas. You've already taken a leadership position, and we want this next step. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Nancy Hardy.
Hi, hello, Mayor, Council. I just had a thought that came to me when I was out there. It was February 7th, 2018, or it could have been 17 or 16, I don't remember, but it was at a planning commission meeting when the work session, the people that want to develop at the north side of the gravel pit brought in all their papers, and they said, this is what we're thinking about doing, but we want to make sure we're moving in the right direction that the city would like us to go. And then at the business meeting, I asked who is providing the direction and is that the direction we want to go. I haven't really gotten an answer. I've just gotten answers that, well, they haven't submitted their application yet, and then we talk, but they've been working at it for a long time, so they're going to have a hard time changing what they want to do because they've put money into it on the north side. But anyway, I've also said how important is parking to the city. If it's really that important, they would try to work on getting some parking on the north side. So now that we have this $13 million to put toward a transit hub or something, how about carving out a south part of the north side to have some parking for now until the south side becomes available, and then we could just merge into the south side at that point and just cross over the boundaries somehow, and then we'd get parking sooner, or transportation, whatever, maybe tracks maybe would come there, but it still seems like a better, less impact on the city to have it on the north part of the gravel pit with people coming over 215 from 215 versus close to Fort Union. I think that would be more impactful to the city. But I still feel a visitor center would be a great place to have in connection with that. You know, there's a lot of things to do, and I feel like if we need parking and stuff so soon, why can't we just take a part of that north side that we can just use now? Just pave, do whatever you need to do, and just have some parking until they have a plan. Just something, I don't know, seems like they could use part of that $13 million and get the ball rolling on what we need.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of quick clarifications. The 13 million, we don't have it as a city. It's UDOT has it. But, and yeah, I understand. I was just clarifying, and of course we were heavily involved in advocating for that to the state legislature. As far as the status of the development of the north end, you might want to check with Mike Johnson to find out where that's at. We as a council have not seen anything more than what we saw in those preliminary meetings, so we've not seen that. We don't know where it's at. But parking and the planned parking hub, the meeting that's happening right now behind us is referring to that issue as well. Hopefully you'll spend some time before you leave and share that same concept with them and let them see if that works into the work that they're doing. But
I shared it with John Thomas. He told me to come in here and share it with you guys.
well, that's great. No, it's both. No, I agree. Well, there's no question that the parking hub is a priority. That's why the 13 million is there. It is for land acquisition. It's not for construction. So we got some challenges, but conceptually, I think we're on the same page that we need to have a transportation hub at that site. So all valid comments. Eric, come on up.
Council, Mayor, Steph. Real quickly, I want to thank you for a couple of resolutions and some discussion you had earlier today. I support Ordinance 331, passing it. I also support Resolution 219-66, as well as the presentation regarding all the attempts that you will be tackling this coming winter to mitigate the problems with traffic. Thank you. Regarding Wasatch Boulevard and ski traffic and mitigating those problems, the Planning Commission, I believe, is already scheduled to listen to that application for the north side of Wasatch, the gravel pit, tomorrow, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, or next week. I can't remember when the meeting is. But in any case, the PDDs and legislative zoning, you will be writing basically a custom zoning for that application. I want you to take special care on this, and I requested last time that there was a rezone application on the north side going into Little Cottonwood Canyon about taking care about not increasing the density before resolutions and traffic long-term solutions are being found. So therefore, I want you to take extra care about how you're going to develop the Wasatch gravel pit ahead of what the solution for Wasatch will finally end up being. Don't put the carriage before the horse. Park Center is one of those places where we actually said we're going to put parking for public, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to densify it. And frankly, if we are going to put a transit hub at the gravel pit, that parking lot really becomes meaningless or is reduced in the benefit to the welfare and the usability for the public welfare. So I don't see why, if there's any planning, so therefore take your time to get it right. Fort Union, a week or two ago, the Planning Commission actually listened to an application for redevelopment. One of the main things that they talked about was about the guardrails and the requirements that they are supposed to take a look at to approve an application. That is an administrative zoning resolution, and we need to do a better job about codifying what we really want out of that master plan. If you really want to increase a sense of place and walkability in that corridor, we need to actually codify certain elements, a sense of place. And something that I've actually been learning is a sense of place. This is a room. A room has a sense of place because it has walls. If we actually start building walls that are all crooked and going all over the place, you lose that sense of place. Undulation was a word that the Planning Commission actually used on the last application. Oh, we love the undulation of this building and going like this. You're breaking the sense of place. You're not going to end up with a product that actually meets the goals that you establish through that master plan. And I want you to take a close look, tell staff to actually look at building a better code so that we can actually end up with a corridor that actually benefits everybody in Cottonwood Heights. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. All right, that's the last speaker comment card that I have. Is there someone else who didn't fill it out who would like to address? Come on up, Tim.
Mayor, real quick, this is Mike over here. If I can clarify with the gravel pit, so they have submitted a preliminary application that will be introduced to the Planning Commission, but only in the work session, and that is tomorrow night. So we're just introducing the preliminary submittal to the Planning Commission. It's just the very beginning of the public process. Widespread noticing will go out as this moves along and as we ramp this process up.
Yeah, appreciate that clarification, yeah. Come on, Tim, come on up.
All right, mine's real quick this week. I'm asking Matt, please, to take out some white paint and for about 60 feet on Highland, southbound where Starbucks is, restore that right-hand lane. Because what I found on the traffic is, although the 3 lanes squishing into 2 isn't that bad, and everyone does get through in 2 cycles, there's a lot of traffic going into the Starbucks there. So really it's 1 lane handling the 3 lanes going forward instead of the 3 that were there before. So all I'm asking is just, I've got some paintbrushes, I've got some paint. If you want to go out and do it this weekend, we can do it. I'm just kidding. But really that 3 lanes needs to go straight there. And so we have the big sign that says, this goes straight, this turns to the right. If that goes all the way, instead of it merging from 3 lanes to 2 lanes and then widening back to 3 lanes, I think the Starbucks traffic would be better handled. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. That's a question we seriously looked at, so you may want to check with Matt and he'll give you kind of an update of where that question was, how that was resolved internally. But yeah, we sure looked at that. Okay, is there someone else in the audience who would like to speak who did not fill out a speaker's card? All right. Appreciate those public comments. Next item on the agenda is the standing quarterly reports. First, we have Scott Georges, our Finance Administrative Services Director. Scott?
All right. Oops, sorry. So
There's the website.
There's the website. So I wanted to start here. So I've actually given you 2 items there before each of you. One is the completed budget book for last year, and this is the budget that we just adopted in June for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. It just reiterates everything that was adopted there, adds some narrative to it. Many of the schedules that are in here are the same schedules that were looked at that point in time. So anyhow, but it's a good book to get that. The other item is the September monthly financial report. And I wanted to just show on the website, if you go to your government and then under finance, under budget and financial reporting, if you were to click that, and then come down to where you've got monthly financial reports, and listed there, you've got a listing of all of the monthly financial reports back to July of 2018. The reason why we don't go back further than that is the one that ended in June of 2018 is represented in the annual financial statements that are posted out there. So all of the monthly financial reports are represented there. Under the annual operating and capital budget, it's got all of the different budgets and adjustments that go on. This big budget book here is the top item there that was done. We completed that in the 1st of October and sent that out to each of you electronically, which is our preferred method of distribution to each of you. And then finally, under the annual financial statements, we have all we call them CAFRs, but they're comprehensive annual financial report. So the last completed report is financial year 2018. We will be finishing the financial year 2019 report in either November or December this year and then post that out there. So that's where a lot of this information resides. So anybody, whether you're a council member, mayor or staff, or the public who's looking for this, that's where that all resides. And so I just wanted to bring that up, that you can access this, and we do update the monthlies in here approximately a week after the month ends. It sometimes fluctuates a little bit from that, but that's about when that happens. And the other items go out here when needed. The comprehensive, the budget document that you have before you is here. It has the page thumbnails that pull up, and you can see the different pages. It goes through. On the table of contents, there's hyperlinks. So if you want to go to something, you want to go to the fund summaries, if you click on this, it'll take you right down to the fund summary. The next few pages are there and have their according different things. Depends on, excuse me, went too fast, what you want to look at. If you wanted to look at the legal debt margin, you can just click on that. It'll take you right to that page. So all this is available there. It helps you to navigate and see what's going on and what we have in our budget and how that's all working. So hopefully that will be good, but I'm not going to go over this document more than that unless you have a question, because it's really just kind of trying to put a narrative to the budget is what it's really attempting to do, but just it's the budget that was adopted in June of this year. Any questions on that particular one? Okay.
Well, just an appreciation for sharing that with us, what's on the webpage. I think that's very helpful and very transparent for people to look at. So I appreciate that effort.
And it's back there for several years back. We don't have all of them back to the beginning of time, but we have a lot of them. The most recent ones, which are the ones that people are mostly interested in. Not sure what a drawing error is. Okay, so moving forward, no, this isn't one that I want. Let's get to the right thing. Let's go to, so in our monthly financial report, we've got several items there. And again, it's on the website. This is it on the website, monthly financial report. It'll go through a little bit of a narrative, and then it has some schedules that are by fund. And so if you can rotate this, rotate it clockwise so that you can actually read it, then you can see when you get onto page 6 in the document, it has some of those items there. I'm going to flip over to a couple of graphs and go over a few things at this point in time. So on this, let's see if we can't make this a little bigger. So this is our sales tax. See if we can get this. Okay, there we go. Now we got it to work. Okay, so our sales taxes are collected about approximately 2 months slow. It takes the State Tax Commission about 2 months to collect the data from the retailers and what have you and get that distributed out to the municipalities and such. So, but I want to go back here. In our prior year, our budget here was $6,241,000. That's that column right there. We collected 101.6% of our budget. Right here, that amount is $6,341,000. And so I'm kind of reviewing last year as well as this year. So we did a little bit better than we had budgeted. We kind of knew we would do a little bit better. We always have some things where we do a little better, some things where we do a little worse. Going forward, our budget for this year is $6,350,000. Based on the fact that we collected $6,341,000 last year, it's only about $9,000 more. I think it's safe to say we're going to collect that for our budget this year. Now, it's a little premature because as the market changes, if things were to drastically change with the market, then that could be altered. At this point in time, with one whole month collected, so 1/12 of the year, 8.33% of the year, we've collected 8.41% of our revenue. So we're slightly ahead of our budget, and so I don't have any worries at this point in time, very early in our projections, but I don't have any worries about our sales tax revenue at this point in time.
You know what's really helpful there is if you could show in the next iteration of doing this, where we were at this point in the previous year.
Okay, so I actually wrote that down. We're $22,000 over what we had collected in the month of July last year. But I don't have that on this, but I can add this. So I'm going to just circle that and say add that one. So that we'll have that for the next go around. The next item is the municipal energy. Let's go to this one. So the municipal energy taxes, we are currently, we collect this approximately 1 month behind. This is collected by predominantly Dominion Energy and Rocky Mountain Power. There are a few other entities, but they're small players in that pool. Our budget last year, right here, was $2,070,000. We collected $1,993,000, so we were short about $76,000 in what we collected. We collected about 96, a little better than 96% of our budget last year, which again goes back to, it's a good thing we're a little bit better in our sales tax as we do that. You can kind of see a trend here where it's kind of been dropping a little bit each year, and we've talked about this a little bit in the past. As we get more efficient in our either our furnaces, our lighting, the other things that happen, and as we don't see increases in rates, since it's a percentage-driven tax, our revenue doesn't grow. In fact, if you were to look back over many years, our revenue has actually shrunk in this particular category pretty much every year. And that's a trend that has gone through pretty much every community in the state as we've had efficiencies, both in terms of our individual appliances and things that we use in that. Moving forward, our budget for this current year is $2,050,000, which is about $55,000 more than what we collected last year. So that may not be attainable. It's also dependent, though, I want to throw out there, on if you have a really hot summer and a really cold winter where your energy uses are up, you'll collect more because more gets used. So you're kind of playing games multiple different ways as you go through that. After 2 months of collections, we are at 16.67% of the year, and we've collected about 16.8% of our revenue. Now, these are in hot summer months when typically power use is going to be much higher. At this point in time, we're $24,000 less than what we had collected last year for the same 2-month period. So we are a little bit below. We're offset by the sales tax. It's a little bit better. We'll wait and kind of see how this all goes as we go through the year on that. Any questions on that slide? Nope. Get to the right one. Okay. Okay, so our cable franchise tax. So, again, this one kind of follows a little bit like the energy tax, as their cable bills typically have been declining in recent years, and or as people go to other services such as Netflix maybe and other things along those lines, other online providers, we have seen a decrease in our collections of our franchise tax, specifically related to cable. This is also a trend that is in pretty much every community, as these same trends occur, pretty much everywhere. Our budget last year right here was $348,000. Our collections were $325,000. I didn't write down what they were in these prior years, but between $325,000 and $350,000 is what they were. Our budget this year right here is $325,000 because we had recognized that this needed to be reduced a little bit. So that's pretty much equitable to what we collected last year. That might be okay, or it might be a little bit of a dip. It's a little hard to tell at this point in time because we collect this one quarterly, and we have not yet received any money at this point in time. So we'll watch this as we go forward. Any questions on that one? Okay, and this one is our general fund expense trend. I don't think you need the title at the top because we know who we're talking about. So in our general fund expense, these years are actuals, 2017, 18, and 19. 2019 has not yet been audited, so it's pre-audit finalization expense totals. Our total budget that we had, and the reason why most of this is blue and there's a little bit of other colors up here, it's our budget adjustments that we had through the year, but our total budget in 2019 was $17,066,000 in general fund expenditures. In our total expenditures that we recognized in that was $16,520,000. So that's about just under a 97% spend rate. And so to put this in perspective, if you were given $1, it means that you were able to go out and spend 97 cents of that dollar. So from my perspective, if you're in the 2.5% to 3% under expend range, that's a good thing because we are not allowed by law to overexpend our budget. If we do that, we can actually become personally liable. And when I say we, it's the elected officials that can become personally liable for that.
Scott, can you share with what the dollar amount of under expenditure is then?
So the under expenditure, it was just a little bit higher, about $540,000.
540,000 under expended that we were able to carry over to the next year.
Yes. And so that's money that goes back into our pocket that we can reuse the next year. So it is a good thing because it delays the inevitable of, we're running out of funds and some of those kinds of things. So there is good that comes about of under expend. We had anticipated to be in the realm of $250,000 of under expend. It kind of surprised us being a little bit higher than what we had expected. But in a good way rather than in a bad way. I'd rather give you guys a good surprise than a bad surprise. So we had anticipated it to be about 250,000, and it's closer to 540,000. At this point in time of the year, we're 25% through the year in our expenditures. We're at actually 27.98, or we'll just round that to 28% spent. Now, one note I want to put in there is we actually cut the check to fire that is due at the first part of October, which was $954,000 at the end of September. So that's going to skew those numbers just a little bit as we look at that. So
Is that why we're so far ahead of where we were this time last year?
That is exactly why. And that's the predominant reason why this number is, or that shade there, that gray shade is more than what this is and in these other years. What you'll see is this equivalent tan or whatever color this happens to be, depends which monitor you probably look at. But when we see that will probably be much shorter and probably more in line with where we are in the next month. And so that's what I anticipate on that. We didn't actually fire the check early. We held it until the 1st of October, and then sent it over to them so that we got to them in the time that they're expecting, but we didn't give it to them earlier because we'd rather hold on to our money than give it to them early. No offense, Chief. So, but our total expenditure budget for this year, right up here in the general fund, is $17,387,000. It's roughly $300,000 higher than what the expenditure budget was last year, which is not a huge increase. It's below 2%, but it's not much below 2%. It's going to be right near there. But anyhow, those are kind of the highlights that I've prepared from the document here that we have. I don't know if you have any specific questions that you would like me to address in this. I'm willing to answer those, but that's kind of what I have.
Well, just one quick fundamental question. Is there anything you see that's an outlier or a red flag that the council should be aware of that maybe we haven't seen or haven't raised a question to already?
No, there's not anything at this point in time that I'm seeing that I'm going, oh, dang, they're ahead of schedule or whatever. Everybody's operating probably about right where I would expect them to be at this point in time. I can't think of one area where, usually there is one area where I go, oh, dang, what are we doing here? But I don't have one of those at this point in time where I'm kind of going, what did we do? Did we miss something or what's going on there? And I'm not seeing that.
Okay, questions from the council? Comments?
Maybe just comments on the municipal tax and the cable tax. Just based on the trend from previous years, would you see a reduction in those two by, I don't know, 50 or 60,000 if you were to predict towards the end of the year?
If it was me,
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, it's you.
well, I don't set the budget, though. I can suggest to you, but I don't actually ultimately set the budget. But specifically on the municipal energy tax, which is this one here that's up here, we collected just a hair under 2 million in this column. And here we've got 2,050,000. I wouldn't necessarily recommend changing the budget at this point in time. I will for next year recommend changing the budget, but I'll also watch the trends that are coming in this year before I recommend it. And the reason why I'm not saying to change the budget, because we will probably be $50,000 or so short on this, is I think we'll make up for it in our sales tax budget. Now, it's entirely possible if we want to get messing around with our revenues, we could go and increase our sales tax budget, decrease this one, and have it be a wash. Or possibly even add even a little bit more into our sales tax budget, because I think you'll probably get a little bit more than $50,000 in our sales taxes at this point in time. But at this point in time, I don't see anything materially when you take everything all together that I'm going, oh dang, we need to change things one way or another. Coming in a little bit ahead of schedule from my perspective is good. So I'd like to I don't see a reason to change it at this point in time.
Right, but it seems like in both cases, we were maybe a little bit optimistic
Yeah.
that next year we might want to, I mean, this one was better.
Yeah, this one's much better. We got a little bit better in terms of the collection, and we're pretty much identical in our budget to here. And I'd say let's watch that and see what happens and see if we, have anything. Plus, this one, having it change isn't, a percentage on 350,000 is not nearly as much as a percentage on, $2 million. That's a whole different ball game there. So I'm not seeing anything that I'm going, oh, dang, let's, go through and revamp what we think we're going to collect in our revenue at this point in time.
But next year, in
Next
advance
year,
of budget?
yes.
Yeah,
I will definitely keep an eye on the trends. And where I came from, we didn't have franchise tax, and we didn't have these other things. So I'm getting a little bit used to them, but I think I'm enough used to them at this point in time that I'm kind of seeing some trends. Dave and I have talked about multiple year trends, some things like that, where when you look valley-wide, some of the trends in some of these taxes, and specifically because of decreases in costs and efficiencies over the years in both energy and in cable, there have been drastic reductions when you look at the valley in a whole. Some of them have actually cut in half in terms of their overall collections over the course of a 10-year period. So that's a regressive tax rather than, at least a break-even tax or a progressive tax. So there are some things there that, potentially need to be looked at from a legislative standpoint on the Hill, because you can't alter your tax rate because we're at the statutory maximum in each of these categories.
Hey, real quick, Scott. In my industry, restaurants, we have all kinds of metrics so we can evaluate the value of a Del Taco versus a Cheesecake Factory. And so we've asked you between now and when we evaluate the budget in February to help us take a look at how we're doing compared to our 5 closest neighbors so we can compare apples to apples. Can you just tell the public really quickly how you're going to tackle that request?
Yeah, so it's very difficult because each municipality kind of has their own theory on how to budget, and no two are the same because they've been developed at different times. Some might have been developed 50 years ago. Some might be recently that they've developed. Different people involved in terms of development of how they budget. They might have more divisions or less divisions, or maybe have them combined differently. And so the theory of how budgets are assembled, what's included in an individual budget, is pretty different city to city. Now, in a general sense, do most cities have a police budget? Yes. But do all police services have, I don't know, the gas in their budget? Some do and some don't. I'm aware of some cities that actually keep all their gas in their fleet budget and don't have that reflected in their police budget. We happen to have our fuel represented in our police budget. So, when you're comparing and you're saying, hey, how are we doing against city A versus city B, sometimes it's difficult to know without just looking at their budget document. You can't necessarily pull that information out very easily. And so you need to go and sometimes have a sit-down talk with people to say, hey, what's in your budget? What's included in this one? What's included in that one? So that as you're trying to make comparatives, you're able to figure that out. And then trying to figure out the best base comparative factor. Is it population? Is it something else? Number of FTEs? I don't know. There's about probably 6 or 7 different methodologies that can be used as you try and do those comparatives, and trying to figure out what's the best way to look at it and how to do it. Sometimes it'll be very apparent. Probably human resources should be FTE based. Probably maybe some other things need to be maybe dollars in the budget based. Some might need to be I don't know, numbers of checks written in a budget. Some of those kinds of things.
Just to be clear, you are going to figure it out before February, right?
Yeah, we're gonna do a good job at trying to look at it and have some comparatives so that we can show you, okay, we think we're efficient in these areas. We think we are different in these areas. This is why we think we're different in these areas. Some of those kinds of things. And some might be very apparent, and some we might be going, we don't know why we're different, but we're different in this area, and we don't know why.
Perfect.
So, but we'll try and do that. But it's something that we're working on.
Well, just an added comment to that question is that I think as a municipality, we want to know the cost of all of our activities and programs. And I think part of the challenge is identifying where costs are charged. I mean, it's tough when you start having a particular cost or particular employee and have to split those costs. So that formula, whatever you're going to use, I think we'd appreciate having maybe a presentation of what formula you're even going to use to identify cost allocation, because it's doing it for many years. It is a complicated process.
It is, and it's something that we'll definitely run by the Budget Committee as we're working through that.
Perfectly,
because I think the Budget Committee needs to be understanding and supportive of whatever decisions are made so that we just make sure it's equitable.
Yep. Thank you.
So are there any other questions as it relates to the budget or the monthly report?
Further questions? Excellent presentation. Thank you. I think it's a little more clear to me than it has been in some prior presentations, so I appreciate the progress. And thanks to Tim as well, especially on your 1-year anniversary of being city manager. So good progress. Yeah. Thank you so much, Scott.
And just one note, if you don't want this, please give it back to me and I'll keep them, because every once in a while we do have residents that come in and want to have a copy of that, and I'd rather just give them one we already have than have to reprint. So if you don't want that, you can go ahead and give it back to me at the end of the meeting today.
All right. Yeah, and thank you, Scott. Let's move ahead. Next item on our agenda is this the second to last report from our Assistant Fire Chief, Mike Watson? Maybe the last? Oh, that's right, a quarterly. This is your last report, so wow. End of an era. So you've been doing these reports for how many years? 15, 16?
Since January of 05.
Yeah, basically 15 years, so.
It's the end of something. I'm not sure I'd call it an era.
I might make a request before you start. Maybe we can change the picture of Mayor Peterson to you.
I think
forward.
that'd be great.
Oh, my word, let's please don't do that.
Oh, I think that'd be a much better picture. Much younger looking picture for sure, yeah.
Well, Mr. Mayor, Council, and staff, good evening. Thank you. I'm really excited to get into tonight's report. If we could go to the next slide, please. So this is Interra. We've been talking about this for quite some time. Our prediction is that we will be pretty much fully loaded with Interra by the time you see your next quarterly report. I wanted to get out in front of it a little bit and show you what Interra looks like for a couple of reasons, and we'll get into that detail as I go through the report. And we're going to spend a bit of time on this slide. It's loaded with information. So these are the calls by nature, and you'll start to connect some of these dots compared to the old report as we go through them. But the yellow row are the different calls by nature, and within each one of those natures, there are a whole bunch of categories.
So is this 2 stations, 1 station?
This is the city.
Okay, yeah, both stations.
Thanks for the question, yes. Yeah. This is what's going on in Cottonwood Heights City, and I appreciate the question because we are kind of, we've put the report together so that it ultimately ends up matching the member fee by percentage of calls, and there will be a slide that calls that out as well. So within each one of these natures, there are a bunch of different categories, and you'll recall that in the past we've looked at a bar graph to see what the top categories are. We'll be looking at those in the future in a pie chart, so we will still look at that. But for instance, just within the nature of fire, there are 100 different types of categories. So obviously there are building fires, there are vehicle fires, wildland fires, rubbish fires, and all of those things. The other thing to notice is where in the row where it says dispatched as, that's pretty important because when a caller calls 911 and gives the dispatcher information, the dispatcher kicks out resources depending on what the caller tells them. Situation found is the call as it gets entered by our firefighters after the call is completed, so that's what they really had. So when you go across a couple of things, when you go across the rows within those natures, for instance, it shows dispatched as 77 fire calls, right? Ended up being 18 in situation found. But as you work your way across those rows, you'll still come up with the same total of 566 calls, right? To get us to the 100%. But this does a couple of things for us. One is it shows why on some calls we see so many resources compared to what the call really is. We go out the door based on what we're told. Does that make sense? Situation found is the data that I've been presenting to you historically in our calls. So dispatched as will give us a little bit more of a view of what's going on globally at dispatch and in the responses from our folks. Does that make sense? So also with this, the report that was sent to all of you electronically was a one-pager front and back. This report for the quarterly has been broken out in slides. Historically, that's what you've asked for. But once we go through this, what I'm going to ask you to noodle on is if you want to keep the format just this way, breaking out the one-pager front and back into slides, or at a work session between now and the next quarterly report, you'll recall I've told you Antera is dynamic, and we can sit there in real time. I can bring in the laptop, we can plug it into the screen, and we can look, you could say, hey, show me District 1 number of medical calls, and I can do that in real time. So my point is your options would be to keep the report as is, breaking out the slides from this one pager that gets sent to you, or we could keep the one pager slide and break out slides that are customized to the things that you consider important. Does that make sense? So we'll have those options to look at. And at some point, like I say, we'll schedule that in a work session between now and the next quarterly. This is the first blush. The next quarterly will be what I would consider as the second blush, and by the time you get your third quarterly, I think we'll have
Who will be doing that
the
next
finished
quarterly?
product. Great question. So one of the things for me to report to you is, like the chief reported in board meeting this morning, the process for finding my replacement will be the 14th and 15th of November. We're going to wait for that process to finish up, and as we explained in a meeting here in the city, once that's done, then we will start the process of picking my replacement as Cottonwood Heights liaison. The who we don't know yet. So thanks for the question. Any questions about this slide before we move on? Okay, thank you. If we could go to the next slide then. This is station responses in the city. So this ties exactly to the member fee by percentage and who our neighbors are that come into Cottonwood Heights and how often. So we'll start with our own stations first, and this slide does break out the two stations. So of the 508 total calls, Station 110 took 364 of those for the quarter. Station 116 took 144 of them. Our neighbor to the west, Midvale, from Station 126 came into the city 48 times, and Station 125 came into the city once. Our neighbors to the north in Mill Creek, Station 101 came into the city 4 times. Station 112, which is over by the Olympus Hills Mall, came into the city twice, and then Station 106 came into the city 1 time. Now here's an interesting one. You would ask me why Brighton Township would ever come into Cottonwood Heights, right? Just a reminder that up above the S-turn is where the division is on the responses from 116 or 108. So this would be an example of 2 times that in the quarter that 108 came down past that border because 116 was already in a call. Next slide, please. This is a call comparison that will show the top 2 top cities or municipalities for the quarter, and then the bottom 2, and you can see where we sit compared to those. Now, a couple of things. Again, this is by jurisdiction, and for instance, Mill Creek has 3 stations. Taylorsville has 2 stations, but Station 118 on Redwood Road has 2 crews, right, to address the density there. Instead of building 2 stations, separate stations, it was more cost effective to do it that way. So just want to point some of those things out where we have 2 stations, but you can see the 566 calls for the quarter and then how that compares to Mill Creek, 1287, Taylorsville 1194, Copperton with 14, and then Alta with 9. Next slide, please. Now these are the calls where we go into the natures and then we look at the specific categories. This is the one that I said is now in a pie chart rather than a bar graph. So a couple of things. This is one of the things we still want to work on before the next quarterly. But when you see the color coding, just to the right of each color, you see a number. That's a 1. That doesn't mean one call. That is fire calls are category 100, and that's what that means. These are in hundreds. So you can just look at that and you can see that, for instance, 4 of the calls were brush fires or brush and grass mixture fires, and 3 of the calls were dumpster-related fires, things like that. So we'll work to go through these color codes. I have asked Cindy to make this slide larger so it's easier to read, and so we'll just keep kind of driving into this and showing you the natures of these calls. If we could go to the next slide, this will show you the same information for medical calls now. And here you can see that 324 calls were EMS calls excluding vehicle accidents with injuries. 24 of the calls were motor vehicle accidents with injuries and things like that. So that's the breakout now compared to the old bar graph slide. This is an interesting one that we've not been able to show you before without Intera. This would not be easily queried previous to this. So this shows you the time of day or the hour of day through the quarter and the counts of calls. So really quickly, you can just look at this and go through what time of day it is and how many calls we would get. And this is in military time, starting with midnight and going through 11 p.m. So you can see the spikes are at 9 and 10, or 10 and 11 a.m., stays fairly busy through 9 p.m., and then the calls start to drop off. This is something that's helpful for us when we combine the hour of the day counts with volume in determining where to put, for instance, a peak load ambulance or to add a full-time ambulance, for instance. Next slide, please. Day of the week counts. This is interesting as well. This gives you a really quick look at the quarter, and you can see Mondays and Thursdays and Saturdays are the busy days of the week for this quarter. Those will change, obviously, with winter and things like that, right? Next slide. Thank you. This is the dot map of fire and EMS calls. Red are fire, blue are EMS calls, and then green are other calls which don't fit either into fire or EMS. That goes back to that first slide I showed you where we have those different categories. But what this does is shows you the concentration of calls in the city or lack of concentration calls in other areas of the city. And when we get into the interactive piece of this, we can also just tell it to give us a query, a heat map, for instance, of the whole city or of a specific district if you want to kind of dig into that as well. That's pretty even. I would have expected to see a higher density along your main corridors in our city, but that's spread out pretty evenly for the quarter. Any questions about that slide? Okay, thank you. That is the presentation for this evening. Please, like I say, noodle on this, right? And think about the things that you consider important to the city, to your districts, and then whether or not you want to break those things out into separate slides.
Chief, I really appreciate the improvement and the additional analysis, and I think we'd like to take you up on your offer to share with us what options we have in future reporting at a work session sometime. And lastly, the only thing I would ask is there a way to look at any trending at all? So if we need to adjust anything based upon trends going from month to month or year to year or something like that?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. We will be able to do that for whatever time periods you ask. In fact, since Interia is interactive, we could literally be sitting in a work session and, for instance, Council Member Bruce could say, well, show me how many fire calls there have been in my district for X of a time period, and we can just enter that and load it right then and there. And so we can do that. You can tell us what you want us to do.
Yeah, like I'm interested
Over
in,
time.
as an example, when it comes to the number of traffic related calls, where those are, if it's Wasatch Boulevard versus Fort Union versus Bengal Boulevard, a particular intersection. There's some things like that that would support, along with our police chief, as far as any issues we have to relate to. And I saw that on a couple of the maps, and I was surprised how few are on Wasatch Boulevard, but it depends on which month, I'm sure, too, versus January versus middle of summer and
So
stuff like that.
this is going to be really fun, because when we show you the different things that are in Intera, the data is there. So all we have to do is give Intera the parameters and hit go, and it'll pull them up for us, rather than us having a person querying information that could take weeks or a month to get that back to you. We can do it in real time. The other thing that I'm really excited about is the next thing that is coming with Intera once we get this dialed in and launched is we want to give you access to Intera. So if you have a thought that comes to mind, you can get on your computer and you can go into Intera and you can query it for yourself, just to answer a quick question.
Further comments, questions? Thank you, Chief. Excellent. Appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
I'm not sure it's goodbye yet, so
Please
see you
let's
soon.
not do that.
All right. Appreciate those reports and the audience's patience, and hope you can see the value in those. And I think those will also be on our website, that people can take a look at those as well. All right. We did mention we have 4 action items we'd like to go to now. Before I do that, I'd like to excuse Councilmember Scott Bracken, who's not with us this evening, and he is excused. With that being said, the first item for action is Ordinance 331, amending our city code of ordinances concerning outdoor lighting. Okay, we've, Mike Johnson, just want to introduce that just real quickly for us, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So, as you stated, this is a proposal for an outdoor lighting ordinance. I appreciate the council's previous direction to explore this ordinance, and really appreciate the work of Matt Taylor, our senior planner, in conducting more than extensive research into the best practices for outdoor lighting and standards that meet the purpose of what this ordinance is meant to be, but are also able to be implemented, understood, and administered from a staff level, from a developer or homeowner level. I think what we've got is a great ordinance that's based on a lot of really solid data. Also appreciate the input from the other city staff, from fire and police and public works. But this is an ordinance that seeks to update and enhance our outdoor lighting requirements for any new development in the city, any new construction. And its purpose is to eliminate some of the hazardous effects of excess lighting or excessive lighting. I won't go through the intricate details of it. That's been presented multiple times, but this has been through Planning Commission. It received a positive recommendation for Planning Commission. It's been to a few council work sessions. We've gotten some input from Mr. Gardner here that we've incorporated the best we could into the ordinance to, again, make it easy to understand, easy to implement. The standards are a little stricter for commercial development, but that's to be expected and that's reasonable. But the residential standards, we feel that they achieve their goal while also being not so burdensome on the part of a homeowner, on the part of staff, to make sure we get what we're looking for there. Unless you have any questions, that's what I have for you.
Any questions from the council? I know, like you said, we've been over a few times, and so if there's no further questions, I would entertain a motion for approval of Ordinance 331.
I move that we approve Ordinance 331.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bruce. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Councilor Michael. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd call for the vote. Councilor Michael.
Yes.
Councilmember Bruce.
Yes.
Councilmember Shelton.
Yes.
And I will vote yes, and Councilmember Bracken is excused. Okay, the next item for business is Resolution 2019-66, amending the city's sustainable energy resolution. Mike, I'll let you introduce that and how it relates to House Bill 411.
Sure. Thanks again. The mayor and council previously adopted a sustainability resolution prior to this past legislative session. House Bill 411 came out of this past legislative session, and that establishes what's called the Community Renewable Energy Act. And what that does is provide a path forward for communities who opt into this to begin to achieve, begin to get their power from renewable energy sources, to help Rocky Mountain Power invest in those renewable energy sources and make sure that communities opting in are offsetting their impact to the electrical system with the requisite amount of renewable energy source. The first step in opting into the Community Renewable Energy Act is to adopt a resolution with a goal for a city to be powered by renewable energy sources by 2030. The existing resolution we had in place was 2032, so we were close, but we just need to tweak that a little bit to get that to 2030. There's a long list of things that need to be done still on the part of the Public Service Commission and Rocky Mountain Power in formalizing and beginning to implement an actual policy of this Community Renewable Energy Act. At any point in the process, the mayor and council have the opportunity to get more information, to further opt in, to seek more information, to opt out. But we don't have any option to pursue this if this resolution is not adopted by December of this year.
Thank you, Mike. Any further comments or questions regarding this resolution amendment?
Just a thank you to the voices that came out tonight for public comment. I appreciate your time and energy. And thank you, Ken, on the lighting. Valuable input.
I guess I have maybe a few things I'd like to say. I think the resolution, and other council members can speak maybe better. I shouldn't speak for them, but for me, I felt like the three principles in the resolution, affordability, reliability, and environmental stewardship, were important, and perhaps why the resolution was passed in the beginning. I found it interesting. I was with a municipal utility CEO a few weeks ago. He was a gentleman that started working at a coal plant, probably in the 70s when he got out of college, and he's worked his way up to becoming the CEO of Platte River. And what he told me, he said, Christine, all these environmentalists think that everybody's moving to renewables because it's so clean. And he's like, that's true, but what the papers won't tell you is that why everybody's moving to renewables is because it's the cheapest renewable resource there. And so I support this measure, but I also support it from a fiscal responsibility measure for our community. So that's why I'm going to support this tonight. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a motion for approval.
I move that we approve Resolution 2019-66.
Been moved by Councilmember Bruce. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Michael. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Councilmember Michael.
Yes.
Councilmember Bruce.
Yes.
Councilmember Shelton.
Yes.
And just a quick comment before I support the resolution. As I look at the Clean Heights green announcement out front, I really appreciate John Kennington's comments today, and I applaud the City Council. It's not always easy to develop consensus on issues like this, but as John eloquently outlined, there's been about 10 or 12 different initiatives, from glass recycling to this resolution to the no idling to so many things that I think this council is sensitive to. And they don't do it kind of willy-nilly. They really spend their time in looking at it and debating it. And so I applaud the efforts. I applaud the compromise consensus in this resolution, and definitely support changing the date from 2032 to 2030, and appreciate the staff's work, Mike and Tim and others who have all been behind this as well. So with that, I will also vote yes. Item 4.3 is confirming and ratifying the membership of our city's Parks and Trails Open Space Committee. It's kind of a corrective measure to get some memberships to that committee corrected. So Mike, I'll let you introduce that as well.
Yeah, very quickly. No actual changes are proposed here. The resolution that was previously adopted to extend some memberships on the committee added or reverted into a previous document that had some names of committee members that are no longer on the committee. We're just cleaning that up so that this resolution reflects the actual current membership of the committee.
Okay, with that clarification, any further discussions or questions? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we approve Resolution 2019-67.
It's been moved by Councilman Shelton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Michael. Any further discussion? Comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Councilmember Shelton?
Yes.
Councilmember Bruce?
Yes.
Councilmember Michael?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. The next item of business is consenting to an appointment to the Cottonwood Heights Historic Committee of Miss Beverly Beckstead, who's been proposed to join that committee. Any further discussion on that? Tim, you want to introduce that?
Yes, I have sat down with Beverly, and I'm recommending that she be considered tonight. She has had references, as we mentioned in the meeting, from Max Evans and Carol Woodside. She is from this area. She actually worked for Brighton High School, which is fairly close to us, if I recall, for 31 years, and she's very invested in the community. As especially as they're looking at some elements of the historic Brighton High School, and she'll be a really good resource, we feel, because of that as well. So I'm recommending that you consider her tonight and think she'll be a great addition to the committee.
Excellent. Okay, any questions or comments regarding that proposed resolution? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
I move that we approve Resolution 2019-68.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bruce. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Shelton. Any further comments or discussion? I call for the vote. Councilmember Bruce.
Yes.
Councilmember Michael.
Yes.
Councilmember Shelton.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Okay, that's the last action item, other than we have a consent calendar, approval of meeting minutes for a very special day in some people's minds, September 17th, 2019. That's my birthday, that's why I said that.
Do you want us to move that we recognize your birthday as a citywide holiday, or?
Well, I just, whenever I see that date, it doesn't say the year though. Anyway, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the minutes for September 17th.
I move that we approve those minutes.
Moved by Councilmember Shelton. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Entertain a motion to adjourn and reconvene in our business meeting, in our work session meeting, I'm sorry.
I move that we adjourn and reconvene for our work session.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.